But good news from both Perth and from Melbourne. Perth, still just one person infected in that outbreak that shut a city of 2 million. Melbourne, just still the one infection there too. I mean, obviously, maybe incubating in some people right now, we don't know, but still just one massive city affected. Now, this perhaps suggests our politicians should not overreact. They should, yes, get very tough with every outbreak, very tough, but they should be able to do that with good contact tracing and quarantine. And please step up the way that these quarantine hotels are run. But let's check now how Melbourne has been hit by this outbreak and the new restrictions. Joining me is Sky News reporter in Melbourne, Gabriella Power. Gab, it's so good to catch up with you again. First, the Australian Open starts next week. The person who got sick was working at a hotel where many players and support staff are staying. How are they and the Open affected?
Andrew, preparations for the Australian Open have been thrown into turmoil. Warm-up matches were postponed today, and right now 507 tennis stars and officials are self-isolating as they wait their test results to come back. They were staying here at the Grand Hyatt, which is where the 26-year-old worker contracted coronavirus, so they're considered to be casual contacts, which means they will be able to leave self-isolation once they get their negative results back. Now, health authorities say that the risk is very low that anyone will actually test positive for the virus, and Tennis Australia say that things are going to plan and the Grand Slam will go ahead as scheduled for Monday.
Well, that bit's good. What about Melburnians? How are they being affected and for how long?
Well, Andrew, we're back to New Year's Eve restrictions, which means masks are mandatory once again for indoor settings. Home visits have been capped to 15 people, and the set return to workers for 75% of people getting back into the office that was set to take place on Monday, that has been put on pause. But there's no doubt that this positive case has sent Victoria into a bit of a frenzy. There were less people out on the streets today, and thousands have rushed out to get tested. Some Victorians waited up to 3 hours to get a swab, and some were turned away at testing clinics once they reached capacity. Now,
a bit confused, right? So this bloke so far is the only person that's been tested positive. Family and all that have been checked as well. He worked in this quarantine hotel. Did he get sick there? And do we know how he got sick?
Authorities believe it is this hotel in the Grand Hyatt, which is where he contracted the virus, but they don't know how. They say he is a model worker, no protocols were breached, but we understand that he worked on a floor where there were 6 positive cases. 4 of those cases were of the UK variant, so authorities say that it is likely he does have the UK strain. 14 exposure sites have been added to the DHHS website, so everyone is being encouraged to get on there, and of course thousands will now have to get tested and isolate, Andrew.
Absolutely. Well, that brings me to this question, Gab. I mean, because of the huge number of places that have been affected, perhaps not just only by him, but some of his close contacts, you know, there's little alerts and all these amazing places where so many thousands of people stream through. Why is this quarantine hotel in the city? You were interviewing Melburnians today. What did they think about having the quarantine hotel smack bang in perhaps one of the busiest streets in the CBD?
Well, nearly everyone I spoke to wants the quarantine hotels to be moved out of the city. Victorians know far too well just how quickly things can escalate once there is a leak from hotel quarantine, and no one wants lockdown at 3.0. Take a listen to some of the locals I spoke to.
I think outside would be better, but, you know, I just want to get some flights coming in. I haven't seen my wife for a year because she's stuck overseas, so I just want to get someone here. I don't care where they quarantine, just anywhere would do me.
I'd have a slight preference towards regional areas, just because then when they go out in the community, then they're spreading it sort of where there's lower density.
From an return traveller point of view, it's better to stay in city, so they can at least see something, because you're not supposed to go outside from your room.
Because there's less density outside the city, it's probably better to have regional areas so that you can put people and quarantine them in the regional spaces.
Premier Daniel Andrews says that he's open to discussing this with the Prime Minister, and it's likely that this positive case will be brought up at National Cabinet tomorrow. Take a listen.
Other Chief Health Officers will be very interested to hear from Brett and from Alan and others as we do that more detailed detective work and narrow it down. And there may be some open questions for not just the hotel quarantine program here in Victoria, but indeed the program that's run across the nation.
Andrew, only time will tell how this will play out for the Australian Open, but also for Melbourne in terms of restrictions. At the moment, the Premier says that the risk is manageable, but he's not ruling out imposing tougher restrictions if it's needed.
Yeah, well, that just goes to my point, Gab. I mean, really, I don't know why the Premier thinks he has to go to Canberra to discuss this. It's his city. He should protect it. He can build a quarantine centre outside the city. It's perfectly, I just think it's going to be a squabble about money. That's about the size of it, I think. Gabriella Power, it's great to catch up with you again. Hope to see you on this show very often this year. Thank you for your time.